All right, guys. Hey, my name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sihan. Today, Craig and I are co-hosting an awesome opportunity interview to have Tony Rodrigues back with us. He's been on the show, I don't know, four times, I think, and very excited to have him back because he has his book out, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well as whatever else pops up with the questions. And just really excited to have you back, Tony. And hey, Craig, how's everybody doing? You guys, how's
I'm
your day?
doing good. It's been a great day. This format, I usually have a green screen, so I got that fuzz around me. So I'm just going to roll with it. It's been a great day. Thanks for having me back. The book has been received well, and it's been a huge load off my shoulders. Getting the book done really exercised a lot of the demons that I felt, and I didn't realize it. But like once you write things, remembering thinking about things is a completely different thing than having them tangibly written on paper. And then something like what I went through, to have it put it behind me, there's a real relief. Like I'm not saying I'm over it all or anything, or that I've forgotten it, but there's a real sense of completion, because I really was there for a long time. I mean, it took me 6 years, and for a long time I wondered if I'd ever get the book finished. And it wasn't for Jackie Kenner and Andalara, who helped me transcribe it. If it wasn't for them kicking me in the butt, I would have still been writing it. So
Well, and for those of you who are not aware of what this book is actually about, some of you know we had Dan Willis on last week about the secret space programs and the 20 and backs. And this is actually about his story of a 20 and back and his abduction. And I know, Craig, you have a ton of questions and lots of stuff to dive in. I have my share too, but Craig, how are you doing? And then start with your questions and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, no problem. Well, thank you. I'm a huge fan, Tony. I've been listening to you for quite a while now, and I'm really honoured to be able to actually talk to you. I'd just like to apologise at how red I am. The sun has made an appearance in the UK.
Hey, it looks good. It looks healthy.
I don't go brown. I just go bright red. So anyway,
I can't wait. I tell you, it's we're just thawing out here. So.
Oh really? Yeah. Well, it's just about turning here in England now. Yeah. So I've said to you in Messenger, I'm about 80% way through the book at the moment, and it's a difficult one to describe, because I mean we spoke with Tyler and Aaron recently, from Journey to Truth, and I said at the time, I didn't ask to know this stuff. It kind of came to me. And I mean, their response is, well, that happens to people who've usually had some form of experience. And I'm like, well, I don't have, at this moment in time, I don't have any memories or anything like that, but that's a different side. But your book is really just impacting me in a very, very deep way. And I can't really describe it. It's very, very, you're very vulnerable in it. Which I'm grateful for. You're very real and very open, quite graphic at times as well. But that just adds to the impact of what really goes on in these programs. So I guess for me, the first thing that really impacted me was how it all started. When you were a child, and there was this kid at school, right? I don't want to ruin the book for anyone who's going to read it. But this has been a question of mine for a long time. Since I started about 2016, I started listening to this kind of testimony and getting into the secret space program thing. And I always had the question, like, how are people chosen? How, at what point does this go, right, that's the one, let's have them? And your book answered that question for me. So as much as you want to sort of describe how it started and this kid that was at school, and it was his dad, wasn't it?
Yeah. So they were a family that has the ability access, administrative access to one of these programs that has the ability to sign people up and say they were just looking for. And coincidentally, in 1982, when I was 10 years old, when I was going through this, it turns out later, now that I'm an adult and I research this and people contact me with their own information, coincidentally in 80 to 82, the CIA and the Black projects, the secret space programs, really acquired a lot of funding. Like they cleared a lot of Black budget obstacles out of the way, and they were very expanding, very much so in those years. They, you know, the moon base got built through the late 70s and early 80s. I could smell wet paint. My first trip there, I could smell wet paint on the walls. So it was that early that it was happening. But so these were people that had access, and I think that there are whole administrations. They're like an administrative level. So they're looking for people with genetics. They're looking for people with performance, and they watch you and they watch your kids to see what kind of. I think most people that go into these programs are groomed at a very young age. Since I've gone public, I've had literally thousands of people contact me. I talked to like 4 this week. People that contact me and say, man, I think I went through something like it, and I want you to help me out. I just want to talk to you and make sense of it. And let you tell me what you think. And so I have a fee for that now, because I couldn't keep up with everybody on my website.
Yeah.
And but I still do. They're still coming in. And what I've found is that for the majority of them, 60-70% of the people I speak to, it begins at a very young age. So they're being groomed. They're being groomed, and some people even, I believe, prenatally. Yeah, like in the womb, they're being turned, genetically enhanced for whatever purpose. So, and that's on one side, and the other side is the category that I was in, was people that were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I've done a lot of the guys that I were living with on Ceres in this facility that I were in were basically a mob of guys. Like, it was like a prison crowd. These were guys that most of them were very criminally minded, very ill-behaved people. And I believe that that's why our prison system is as large as it is, because they're taking people for slave labor to build out infrastructure into the colonies in the solar system and in the nearby stars. I went back and found, and it turns out that in the United States, when they abolished slavery, it's totally illegal to own slaves unless they were convicted of a crime. So the 13th Amendment is worded as such. They don't say what level of crime, a speeding ticket or murder, whatever. They don't say what level of crime, but it's perfectly legal to enslave prisoners. And lo and behold, we have private-owned prisons and the largest prison population on Earth, because people are going to jail in the United States for very small things for a very long time. And this explains, a very good source of slave labor available to them. So these are ifs. I'm connecting dots, obviously. But from what I went through, what I experienced, I went through as a slave, as labor, and that's why I wasn't groomed for what I was doing. And I think that's, was part of the perfect storm of me being able to remember what happened. I was somebody that was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and actually, in fact, went through the wrong programs for somebody that I was. I shouldn't have gone through what I did. It was kind of unjust. And there was just a perfect storm of things. Like, I'm still turning up. There are still mind-blowing things that are happening today that explain how I got my memory. Like, there's no one magic bullet of like, why does Tony remember and nobody else remember? There's not a magic bullet. There's a lot of things that contribute.
That's what Craig and I were talking about earlier, is like, with Dan, is your memory is so, and I've talked to you about this too. When I was starting to get my memories, I had got to a point where I was kind of feeling like I can't handle it. I was having a breakdown, and I was on that like teetering point of like, do I keep going and trying to remember more, or do I stop? And I had talked to you and some others and said, and I just had to back off, because it was so, even with all your memory, to not be a complete mental basket. I don't, it's.
I'm not going to deny that. I won't claim it. It is the feeling. So halfway through, in the early on, my memory process happened quick. Like in the course of like 3 months, I got big chunks of memories, and I had that same feeling of do I want to remember more? When I started when I found the house in Seattle on Google, and those memories happened, there was a real moment where it's the sensation of standing on a cliff to jump in water, and it's scary. You know what I mean? If you don't do this all the time, if anybody's ever cliff dove, you stand there and you're like, that you're going to be fine, but once you go down, you're not going to get back up. And once I knew that once I remembered what happened, because I had a few flashes and I went, whoa. And I knew that if I was going to keep remembering, that I wasn't going to go back to that innocence that I had. And I wasn't, you know what I mean? I was curious of what happened, but In fact, I integrated and had to dispel a lot of the things that happened. And it explained a lot. It explained a lot of trauma. Like I had the scars, I had the hangover of trauma, and I didn't know why. I didn't have the cause. And so once I figured those things out, it was a lot easier to deal with, and when you do get memories, so we're talking about suppressed memories. So industrial grade memory erasing, blanking, whatever, blocking.
Yes.
Once you do remember, you are not the same person that you were. You are that person, but you integrate and become part of that person that you were. And so it's profound. And a lot of people are, want to go get regressions. They're like, I think I was involved. Somebody told me I was involved. There's a lot of people doing that nowadays. I think it's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
It's a dangerous thing. There are some people that shouldn't remember. There are things that you shouldn't remember. You want to integrate being a mass murderer, or you know what I'm saying, something that you don't want to be. Like, people have went into these programs and are forced to do things that are terrible, and so they may, some things are better off left in the past.
Yeah.
So it's different for everybody. I think where we're at in the conversation of disclosure, I encourage people, if you can remember, I think you should, and I think you should speak about it publicly, because we need to make this information a household thing. That's how we're going to get disclosure. At this point, we're powerless to tell the governments and the military what to do. We're powerless to tell them what to do and tell us what's going on. So the other route is to make it widely known, so that subconsciously we tell them what to do. And that's where we're at. So I think everybody should do their part and kind of spread the information. I'm starting to see, I wondered for years, I thought, man, I'm talking about this stuff and there's not really a pushback.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really. Now I'm getting them. They're starting to put out TikToks that are making fun of me, and they get like 10 million views, like way bigger audience than what I reach. And
for advertising.
they're negative. They're very negative. They're my testimony, and they cut it up and make it look like it doesn't make any sense. So, but whatever. So the information's got to get out there. This is real. This is a real deal.
And you have no idea, even though it's all to make fun, who would see that and actually have a related trigger from that too. Because just like you said, Washington was a thing for me. Part of my wake up was my son-in-law is in military, special forces, ranger, all that, and he happened to be on the base, one of the bases that I grew up on, where some stuff happened, and I didn't have a memory, but I was going back with him, and he was just like with my daughter, and he's like, let's show you the base. And I started passing by a building. Oh my God, I'm going to start again. But, just different things. And I was like, holy shit. And like, just my body and everything. And then, even what you said about how far do you go? How much do you talk about it? There are people who do remember, and drugs, alcohol, suicide, like they don't make it.
That's
So
right.
there is a fine line of how far to go. And yeah, definitely some of the stuff. I mean, even with Craig, when I first started talking to him about it, and well, both of y'all, there were days I didn't get off the floor in the fetal position, of just thinking like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But I had an integration, and I'm very thankful for your support, and you're just like making me feel not as crazy, because it feels crazy to have these, like, like someone throws glitter in the air is all, an analogy I use. It's like all these like spots of things that I thought were my imagination, until they start coming together, and then different things trigger, and then more stuff bleeds through. And so anyway, Craig, it looks like you're about to say something.
I was just thinking when you were saying that, it was actually this secret space program that actually caused you and I to meet each other, Sharnael, if you remember.
Yep.
Because I was, I assume we're okay to talk about the person. I was a while ago on a Q&A with Corey Good. And just as a guest, like a guest, I asked him a question, and it was, and I was really delighted that I was chosen. And you spotted me on there, and you were like, I know you from somewhere. I'm like, I don't think you do, but anyway, well, I don't know. And so that this is what brought us together to do this, really. I just think you know, sometimes when I'm going about my day, you know, my normal third dimensional life, you know, I'll be shopping and these things are on the mind. I'm thinking, am I crazy? You know, I'm just here, just living my life and knowing this stuff is going on. You know, for you, Tony, do you ever sort of think like, just get mixed up with the almost double life? You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have to constantly. So my weekdays, I do interviews or consultations on the weekdays. I try to schedule everything for Saturday and Sunday, and so I'll go through a normal week of just being a normal I, doing a construction job, driving a truck, I'm a normal guy. It's like hamburgers and pizza, and I have living my life. And then on Saturday, I go, oh my God, that all did happen. Like especially in the early years, in the first few years I did it, I really had to sit down and go, how do I unpack this? Did this happen? And I would always go, back over there are a few things that I researched that, like, there's no way that I could have known my way around that island in Seattle the way I do. There's just no way. There's just no way. And so for me to go, because I don't want to believe this stuff myself, especially in the beginning, like, it would be a lot easier on me if I would have had my memories back and there was some explanation, like, look, you had some kind of episode, we got some medicine here, take that. If there would have been something like that, or the things I remember didn't exist. I remember a house in Seattle. I remember a town in Peru. I remember it. And if I went there and looked and they didn't exist, there's no house, there's no town, I would have been like, okay, there's some, carry on. And I'll just have to get on with it. But then I looked up Current. Then I looked up the program, the CIA program. I found funding. I found paperwork. I found the house exactly how I know it. I went to the house. I knew the roads. I knew the town. I knew the store. I knew where the candy was in the store. I knew the beaches nearby. And I can prove without a shadow of a doubt that I'd never been there in my life. With my friends and family can vouch, I've never traveled to Seattle in my entire life till 2016. So how did I know the area that well? Because I lived there for 2 years in a 20 and back. And then, so these things are like, I couldn't ignore them. And I was reaching out to people like, please prove me wrong. Like, I actually sit down with people in my life and say, come on, go prove me. Let's do it. Because if I am wrong, I'll shut up and I'll move on. It's that simple. But it's everything. Every time I find a little shred of something to investigate, it's not a silver bullet where I can beat you over the head with it, but it checks out. It doesn't disprove me. It just supports me every time, like hundreds of times. So, like I said, and that feels crazy to me. Like, I go, man. And, I've been lucky. I've had some negative pushback, trolls and such, and I just, for the most part, ignore them. But now they're kind of picking up, and I go, man, the ship has sailed for me to just kind of retract what I've said. I mean, the book is out. The book is full of the accountant. That's exactly, how could I know all that? How could I know a book's worth of stuff and say it in hundreds of interviews over 6 years and say the same story? You know what I mean? Like, it's so I kind of moved away from, their skeptics are gonna skeptic, and I think it's healthy. I think it'd be weird if there weren't skeptics of my story. But they're going to do their thing. But it is what it is. I just laid it out there, and that's my story. That's what I remember, and it keeps checking out. That's what I mean. Just, it's still like time is the greatest lie detector, and time has supported me over time. Over the last 6 years, it's been more supportive than anything else. Like, time hasn't really shot me down yet. So, that's where. So with that in mind, I keep talking about, whenever somebody asks, I keep talking about it, because we should know this stuff. Like, we should know what's going on. If this is, if you know what I mean, like, we're living in a I don't even like to use the word, but we're living in a retarded culture. And I don't mean that intelligently. I mean, technologically, we've been retarded. We've been stunted, and we're living in a stunted existence. We're living with archaic stuff. And we're unaware of our real of the nature of our existence, of what we really are. And they aren't. They're living high on the hog. The people that are behind the scenes, there are underground bases, there are colonies inside bodies in the solar system. They've tunneled in and built cities, and they're living much better quality of life than we are. And we should have access to that, because it's been on our backs, and we're all the same species. We're human beings, and we we should be living together on the same page. It's that simple. So hopefully soon.
Well, and crystals are something that we talked about off camera before, because we just had Dan on and he worked with Dr. Vogel. Crystals are used in a lot of the technology, whether it's like for transportation systems or healing or, the med beds. Even in the physical 3D now, they're used in cell phones and computers and most of the medical technology that's out there. But there's still this other level. And you mentioned earlier, you even held up a couple and said, why don't people know about this? Like, did you know any of that during the 20 and back, or is this completely new?
Well, about the quartz stuff and the consciousness part of it, no. In the 20 and back, they were very aware that consciousness can program reality. They were very aware of it. The Ceres Colony Corp, on a cultural level, that's why they were so arrogant. They were behaving as if they were the most advanced, smartest, best people, as if it already happened. And by that way, they were, and it's a German thing from World War II. It's, what is that called? Manifest destiny, if I'm saying that right. But they were absolutely practicing that on a cultural level, the entire planet, 250,000 people that were living in there at the time. They were practicing that technique. And like, I told the story that, after a few years, after like 8 years of working on a ship, I was out of shape. And I was on a ship, I was on a spaceship, we were on another planet, and we had a layover, and there was an ocean. And so we went out in the middle of the ocean, they put a cargo net down, and they let us go swimming. And because we had like 4 hours to wait for whatever was cargo, whatever was going to happen. And so I went swimming, and halfway up the cargo net, when I was climbing up, I was winded. And one of the younger junior, I don't want to say officer, but one of the junior crew members came up next to me. He said, "What are you doing? Because I was a slave, basically. I wore a slave collar." He said, "What are you doing? Resting?" I said, "I'm tired." And he reported me, and I had to go to PT, after work, after the end of the shift. I had to, instead of going home or wherever I wanted to go, I had to go to the gym and run laps and do push-ups and all that. I had to get in shape. And that was like 6 months of that before that, I had to get physical training. During that time, there was a coach, like imagine like a gym teacher. I was having trouble running laps at first, and he said, "Your consciousness determines your reality." And he said, when you're running, you see that wall? He's like, "Look at that wall like there's gravity and you're going down, and it's easy to run to that wall. And then when you turn the corner to the next wall, look at that wall like you're falling toward it, and your consciousness will help you, and you'll get the lap." He's like, "Do it. It's a state of mind." And so that was something that he taught me then, that I always kind of remembered that lesson. And when I was a kid in school, I was doing the same thing. It was like a habit. It was like a bleed through memory. But looking back on what the things, like you mentioned, Dan Willis, I had him on my show, and he explained a lot of the work he did with Dr. Vogel, Marcel Vogel. And I ran right out and bought a crystal. So, it's just mind blowing, the results that Dr. Vogel was having with, the wine and healing and just on and on. There's so many uses, because all it does is basically your thought process is the same shape as a water, like a snowflake. I'm going to butcher this, but basically your thought process works the same way, and a crystal can amplify it with your thought process. The same thing. So like I said, imagining that the wall is down with a crystal, you know what I mean? Like it kind of can amplify that imagination, I guess. I'm saying that right. Like, I'm still learning. So I'm a student of that information right now, because it's just been so mind blowing. But they were very, the Ceres Colony was very aware of consciousness and the effect it has on reality. And so was the early program, Project Grow Flame, that I was in Inyokern, in the early parts of the book that I talk about. That was all about consciousness-based, remote viewing and actually manipulating the future into your favor with certain techniques and technology. So, through the programs, that was kind of like something that was more accepted, I guess, the way you wouldn't get it down on Main Street here. But I just didn't think of anything of it, because I was a slave. I was not I was groomed to kind of shut up and do and do what I was told. I was not groomed to become somebody that could manifest something. So they did their best to keep me afraid. That was really what happened. Was they reconditioned me to be afraid of everything. They wanted me to be afraid of my own shadow, because that's somebody that doesn't empower themselves. And so that was a big life lesson. And you see it happen today. You know, the people that are having the hardest time in life are the ones that are afraid of little things.
Yeah.
And you have to, at some point, you have to just accept the fact that, bad things do happen and can happen, but you can't let the possibility of it cause you to not live your life. And so that, I guess, that looking back on it after the 20 years and then another 20, 35 years of being alive, that's the takeaway from it, is that, you just got to quit being afraid of tomorrow and just get on with it. So
that's really, really good. And one of my thoughts is, as I'm going through the book, is it feels to me like, obviously we do live on a prison planet here, and whether people realize it or not, we're very much enslaved in a three-dimensional reality. And we can talk about how that's breaking at the moment. I think we're coming into we've crossed a threshold of time where we're going through a kind of an ascension process, and it's not pretty, it's not nice, we're having to deal with our issues. But on that side of things, in the programs, it's very openly a slave system. You are told you are a slave, and the majority, if I'm not mistaken, of the officers in charge are Germans, are they not? They speak German.
Yeah.
And
on the Ceres Colony.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's very reflective of this planet. And the mess that we found ourselves in. And it speaks to me how, in the higher echelons of the control systems of this planet, how they are connected to these programs, and they are dealing with things off planet. And when you put two and two together, it makes so much sense, the situation we find ourselves in on this planet, and what we're going through, and what we've experienced. So what I was thinking was, did you have much bleed when you talk about bleed through coming through? Did you kind of have synchronicities, things that were really weird to you that happened before you kind of remembered what happened? Did you have any memory of that? You like things coming through like, that was weird. Why did I just experience that?
My whole life after the fact, like especially in the teen years into my 20s, till I was 28 or so. They were memories. So I knew they weren't dreams. And it was the weirdest thing, because there was absolutely no form of, like nowadays you can Google stuff like that. We didn't have Google, and there was no, ufology was very, do they exist? Somebody saw, it was about seeing a craft, not really working in one. And so ufology was no help. And I started having these memories, and I always remembered the first 30 minutes of the abduction, the ETs. I always remember that crystal clear. Like those first 30 minutes did not get erased when they put me back. They did for a couple of weeks. A month later, I started remembering seeing the face, and I like that first series of events I always remembered. And so I was always looking. I studied the Bible. I read the Bible, looking. There got to be ETs in there if this is real. If the Bible's real and ETs are real, then they should be Bibles in the ETs in the Bible. And so that wasn't clearly. You know what I mean? Like there are, when you look back, like Ezekiel's basically an abduction.
Right.
He's kind of shrouded in there, isn't it? Yeah.
It's veiled. The ET stuff of the Bible. But
Yeah.
So then I read the Torah, and I read the Quran, and I started reading every religious text I could get. And the Chan Buddha had some. But in the early years, they weren't dreams. They were while I was dreaming. But it's much different, because I would wake up and I would remember being on I would remember like the geyser. In the book, there was a time when we flew over the geyser. We flew over the Okator crater, and we were watching the geyser go off, because it's rare that it happens. So we made sure that they gave us time away from our post. We could go up to the observation deck and look out the windows and see the geyser. It was beautiful. It was a once in a lifetime thing. But dreaming about it doesn't have that early morning of getting up that morning and riding the train and going home that day and leaving my job and feeling sore, and the conversations afterwards and the next week. And the memories, when you're walking down the beach in a dream, you don't know how you got there. When you're walking down the beach in your memory, you remember where you parked your car. and that I was experiencing dreams that had where I parked my car. You know, I'm speaking metaphorically, but so I knew they weren't dreams. I knew there was something more to that. I was like, when could that have happened? And the time difference, like I had chronological memory of being born in Michigan and living my life in Michigan, and when could that have happened? Even though they seemed to bleed through at the same age. So, you know, when I was 25 years old in the 20 and back, when I was 25 years old in Earth, I was getting those. There are times when, you know, we were sharing whatever, however that works. I don't know, man. I'm not a shaman about it, but it seemed to be as they were happening that things would manifest as they were happening to the other me that was up there. So when I had events happen there, I would have events happen here that were mirrored it. And I look back, so this is something I don't ever talk about. I've never mentioned, and I won't go into super detail about it. It's personal. But there were times in the last few years, like in my late 20s, like 28, 27 years old, that I looked and I kept having the same kind of series of events like repeat. And what I found was that every time that it happened, Ceres was in opposition to the Earth. So the orbit of Ceres, when Ceres was far away, things were different. And when Ceres got in the opposition of the Earth, I had the same sequence of events keep happening.
Interesting. Very interesting.
It's personal, so I don't want to go into it. But there was something to that. So, and I look back and I think about it, it's mind blowing to think that, you know, I was on Ceres listening to the loudspeaker and say, we're in opposition to the Earth now. Like they would tell us that. They would say Ceres is closest to the Earth now, but we're not doing any missions there. And we would tell us when we were in opposition to Jupiter, because we flew to Jupiter quite often. And so that was something that they announced to us then. But here on Earth, I kept having things happen why did that happen? And it was like 18 months ago that the same exact thing happened to me. What is that? And I looked, and sure enough, Ceres was in opposition to the Earth at the same time. So there's your consciousness affects your reality. And I mean that in a literal sense. Like your consciousness literally can affect the events that are going to happen to you in the future. We all kind of astrally get permission from each other, and our subconscious works to manifest things that happen. Some people don't really have there are people that always have the same bad luck or the same good luck, and it's not luck. It's not. It's your subconscious manifesting it for whatever reason.
Do you get ever mixed up in like timelines or like I know a big thing for me is I have trouble remembering dates and times and like even directions at times of like having to use a GPS for somewhere I've been 100 times, or like I'll talk to my husband and I'll say, remember that thing we did a couple weeks ago? And he'll be like, baby, that was like 9 years ago or 8 years ago. Or, it's like, does your time
perception?
I feel like my time clock is broke or something.
Giddy with excitement that you asked that question. What I've learned from working with people is that's the single most important thing is so I'm right. I have a book. It's like a notepad. It's a long-term memory aid that I'm publishing. I'm in the middle of work. Like I was hoping to have it done last week, but it's like cover art. It's got what do you call it? Copyright stuff. So I'm trying to get art together, but whatever. It's just it's a pad that I turn sideways and I put pips on the bottom and on the top. And I have instructions because that's really how I'm sorting people out. People come to me. It's very rare that I find somebody I think is BSing me. But the ones that they don't know, they're like, man, I don't know what happened. This happened. I just want to tell you, and you tell me what you think. And what I do is I go, okay, and we're in a Zoom, and I go, okay, so tell when were you born? Okay, and then when was your first weird thing? Then what happened? And then what happened? It was mom or dad in the military. Most of the time, yes. Grandpa, mom, dad, neighbor, somebody's in the Navy. But then I go, okay, keep going. And then usually halfway through, I can go, now, wait a minute. What happened in 2005? And they go, how'd you know? And because you can roll the clock forward 20 years and there's life events. So it happened the same for me. And when you're involved in these programs, that things happen, it's in a 20-year increment. There's a lot to it. It's not just the program. It's like there's a heartbeat of the Earth. There's like an energetic thing. But what I found is that, so think about it like this. We have memory. Everybody watching this, hopefully, and us, we have different forms of memory. We have short-term memory. which is very strong because you use it all the time. You're going to use your short-term memory here within the next 15 minutes. You're going to remember something from a short time ago. Then we have kind of a midterm memory that's like 6 months to now. And then you have long-term memory, which we hardly ever use. Hardly any, you don't use it. You don't need to. It's only when you run into somebody from your past that you begin to reminisce of things long ago, or, you know, out of necessity, like I'm getting sued for what happened in the 80s, whatever. You know what I mean? So your long-term memory is weak, is a weak muscle, is a very atrophied thing. What I've found is that the reason the short-term memory is so strong, or one reason that lends to it, is because you have the chronology of events. So you think about it like this, you go, well, you know, when did you get in your car crash? And I go, well, I don't know. I just got it out of the body shop a week ago. So 2 weeks before that. So you have those bullet points of when it happened. So you can extrapolate, you go, well, today is, you know, April 20 something, right? So I go 2 weeks. I got my truck out of the shop last week, and then 2 weeks before that. So I can pull the date out. It was right around the beginning of April. I got in that crash. Your long-term memory doesn't have that luxury whatsoever, because you go, when did you get in that crash in the 90s? And I go, I don't know. Where did we even live back then? I don't know. It might have been 91. It might have been 98. I don't remember, because you don't have the rest of the chronology. So what I've found is when I work with people, I go, okay. And I go, well, you were born. When was your first weird thing? Where did you live? When did you move? And when I start getting those years sorted out, and then once you build that chronology, and I go, you know what I mean? Like, when did you get in that car crash in the 90s? I go, what car was it? Well, it was the Ford. Well, we got rid of the Ford in 95. So it was before 95. I bought the Ford in 90. So you understand, like, you narrow that window down, and it works exactly like the short-term memory, and it enables figuring out the time span of events, helps you really just kind of zoom in on them and unpack them out of your memory, because your memory is just as good in the past as it is for yesterday or 5 minutes ago. It's the same stuff. It's just that you recall the entire 5 minutes ago. So your memory is very fresh, and you use it all day, every day. It's a tough muscle. It's like a heart muscle. You don't even think about it. But your older memories, your long-term memory, is a muscle that you actually have to lift, and it requires effort. And so the aid that I'm coming together is kind of like that, just a timeline. What I found is when people make those bullet points and go, okay, so I was born in 85, and then it was 91, and then I was about 6, and I had something weird, and then it was 95 when I think I saw a gray in my bedroom, and then it was so and so this time and this time. Once they fill that out, and I go, now sleep on it. Don't think about anything. Shelf it. Put it on a shelf for a day, for a week, and come back. They always come back and go, man, I remember so much more.
Wow.
Because they have that. Now there's a time frame of when it happened, other than just a garbled mess of I don't know. I don't freaking know. And so that's, I'm not a doctor. I'm not somebody that was educated for this. I just lived it, and I've had the a fortune or misfortune, whatever, of people contacting me and telling me their own stories times 1,000. And that's what I've deducted, is that the long-term memory really needs addresses of when the memory happened and when. Everybody remembers where. It's easy to remember where something happened long ago, but when is a kind of a, we just don't think about it. Once it drifts into the past, after that 6 month mark, your long-term memories just kind of just fade away. And there are things that you only remember the bullet points, that the trip to Vegas. I remember that was great. But you don't remember the day-to-day grind unless you really work at it. And so that's what you got to need. Once you get the wins, it fills in naturally.
Well, I think
Chatterbox. Sorry.
No. This is
it's brilliant.
I think too, the where you could see the pictures. I mean, you may not be able to identify the images of where, but with time, you don't see clocks. You're not looking. You don't see numbers when you're going in your memory. But I see images, and so maybe that's part of the broken time clock kind of situation. But yeah, now that you're saying that, I'm glad you're making this tool, because that's what you did with me whenever I started, is you're just like, write it down, and it does work. It did help fill in some gaps there. Some things I didn't want to know, and sometimes some things I was like, oh, okay, yeah. And it helped. So,
there's no way to sort it out. So I always tell people going into it, you're going to start remembering things. Look, there's no way to sort out the good from the bad. And it's a tell for people that are lying, because all of a sudden their story is all good stuff. It's all great. I was in the space program. They put me in charge. I went to the moon. They put me in charge up there. I was a general. Then I went to Mars. I ran an army, and I had this super house. You know what I mean? Like the really grandeur stuff where it's all good news and there's nothing bad ever happened. All bad happened to the other guys because we kicked their butt. And that's a tell that, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of a tell because life doesn't work like that either. Well, you know, if I really ask anybody, you guys or anybody, I can everybody's had some trauma in some form. There's just no way. So that's how life works, you know. And when you start remembering, when you start dredging up and remembering old memories, you got to be ready to accept the bad too. And some secret space programs, some of these programs are very aggressive because of the technology they have. They have technology to heal you if you get killed, damn near killed. And so you can they can schedule the very aggressive actions. And so people see horrible things. They see gory things. They see bad things. And the nature of the culture up there, because everybody was aware that they were going back and that your body, you couldn't get pregnant, you couldn't get VD. So the morals of it are also, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to spill it on the table here. And I'm just going to kind of regurgitate this, but the sexuality, is another part of things that'll make you forget, to make you not want to remember. So it's because it's a different part of your brain. It's a basic software part of your mind. Your mind has several layers of where the consciousness is, and your sexuality and your appetite and your sexuality and your need to stay warm and such is on the reptile brain. And so when they access that, traumatize that area, it supersedes the rest of the brain, and you start remembering those things you don't want to remember. It's part of the block. So that culture combined with that, the sexuality up there is not what it is down here. It just wasn't. It just wasn't for most people. Some programs, depending on the utility of the person in the program, how useful they were. Some people were coddled and very, shielded from that, any kind of trauma, but other people were treated very badly sexually and culturally in the culture. And people that even had great jobs, they get treated bad up there. And so when they start to get their memories back, it's a real roadblock. It's a block, because you have to accept, that I was if you're living everything in your life is pretty well clipping along great. And then you have, like in my instance, when I got my memories back, I was, I had a house on Maui, man. I was in kids, and, I was living a pretty good, I was working hard. I was overworked, but I had a good lifestyle, and I didn't want to remember this stuff. I didn't want to deal with with the trauma. And I went, that happened to me. You know what I mean? Like, and by the time I got embarrassed talking about it, it was too late. It was already public. If I would have thought back on it. And the other thing is, but because it's so fantastical that people can be skeptical, that I don't have the ability to pick and choose. Like there's no way I could hide part of my testimony if somebody was asking me about it and lie on my feet. You know what I mean? Like I don't have that ability. I just don't. And so I had to tell it all, everything. And it's embarrassing. My sister bought my book and I haven't spoken to her about it because I'm embarrassed. Because it
must be difficult. Yeah.
My sister got a hold of my diary. You know what I mean? Like that's what it feels like. It's like embarrassing. Yeah. So my book is like the whole world's got my diary out there. And
well, I mean, I'm very grateful for you doing it. I mean, like I said at the beginning, you really are vulnerable and very open about your experiences and what happened to you. I mean, it's horrible, absolutely horrible. I'm not going to lie, it's not a pleasant read at times, but it's a necessary read to understand the program and the inhumaneness of it at times. But coming back into sort of normality, I wanted to bring up a little bit about. I've not finished this section yet, but Maria, you did have a positive relational experience, didn't you?
I did. The same way that I said earlier that everybody I talk to, I can figure out, I can sit down with you, Craig, probably, and we can sit down over lunch and I can ask you about your life. And if you're candid with me, I can find horrible things that you went through. You know what I mean? Like in your life and just in day-to-day. And I can do that with everybody. Everybody's got things that, hurt them. The same way that and I caught flack in early interviews. I remember that I had some really bad YouTube comments because they said, "Oh, he sounded like he liked it up there." Like, "Oh, he was a slave." Yeah, right. Whatever. He sounded like he liked it. He was enjoying it because that part of the interview covered those years. At the end of my time up there, I had gone from being somebody very greatly abused, a kid, very greatly abused, and then enslaved and then working slave labor, to somebody that had a paycheck, $20 here and there. But I had the ability to move around, and then I had a girlfriend and somebody that was sexually abused early on at a young age in the programs, to get up and actually have a girlfriend who was actually quite beautiful. She was a beautiful soul of a person. And so for me, that was like, the distance of being a millionaire and turning into a billionaire, or being broke and turning into a millionaire. Like, it was achievement, even though it wasn't much. So in the book, it covers that. But the same way that somebody can lead a great life and still have trauma, I was somebody up there that was living a not great life and still have a few moments of, love. And just I had my days. I had days that were great days. I had fun. We had fun. There were times when we were on the ship working. We had a great time. The guys, we all joked. It was light work day, and we were traveling through cosmos. I mean, there were other planets. It was exciting. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, there were times when I knew that I was gonna miss the travel, the going to other worlds. I knew that we all did. We said, I hate this, but that's amazing. When we look out the window, that's crazy to think about where we're at right now. Just the thought of it, was an amazing feeling. To be honest, that doesn't mean I enjoyed being a slave or my predicament. I would love to. People ask me all the time, "Don't you want to go back to Ceres?" And I said, "Yeah, as a free man, I'd love to go back and
go on holiday."
Yeah, I'd love to go back there and have some freedom about it. But she was the person I was, because I had amnesia. And the day I woke up into the 20 years, I had no memory of mom or dad or where I came from. And I was very badly, it was like being a kid in a foster care. So I was very emotionally, and then going through the mind control, the mind breaking. So I was a very emotionally, weak isn't even the right word. I was an emotionally broke. I was completely destroyed emotionally, and then it healed over time as I got good as I became necessary. So when I got good at what I was doing, there was a small amount of pride there, and that healed. That made me feel better. It was my achievement of my workday that made me feel good about myself, that repaired that early damages. And then to have somebody care about me that was in demand by other people. To have Marie, there was a beautiful girl. She was a slave herself, and you know what I mean. But she was a beautiful person, and to have her care about me, I was, that was a big thing. That was a big deal to me. So I'm not sure what your question, where your question left off.
No, just
kind of thinking about it.
That's covered it. It's just to sort of expand on it a little bit. That there was a positive sort of love experience, despite all the horrific sort of sexual trauma and the horrible things. Sharnael, sorry, go on.
I do want to mention that other people I've spoken to, and I can't mention their name, but other people that have spoken publicly and have had quite credible testimonies that have been researched and had judged up proof. Other people that come forward, guys that have come forward, said that they had the same kind of thing, like they were in love when they left. And I got to think that that's one thing that motivated. It was the prime motivator for me to remember.
Yes, you did.
The way back, I wanted to remember. I did not want to. It was like I wanted to forget everything that happened, but I didn't want to forget her. I left in the middle. We were separated in the height of our relation. Every relationship. Some last longer than others. Some last your whole life. But every relationship has a kind of a meeting and then a thing, and then it settles down. And then, most relationships have a short lifespan or a couple of years, and they end. And we were still in that upswing. We were right at peaking in how we felt for each other when we were separated, when they put me back, when I ran out of time. And so that whole time, that's all I could think about was not forgetting her. And so I think that, like I said, there's a perfect storm. There's many reasons why that you could say why I remember.
I'm curious, like, I wonder where she is now. Like, have you thought about where she could be now? If she's there, if she's here, if she's...
You're not getting that out of me.
And ages too. Can you be one age there and then, like, but be in different ages of where they are now, and like, because they can do all that. They can change, you know.
So in my case, when I look back on it, it all lines up. So taken at 10, went till 30, and put back at 10, and then in my real life, those events happened at the same time. And then after the age of 30, it's a long story, but it was really 28 because the ship was going. We were leaving in the morning and coming back in the morning at the same time. The ship had a little, what do you call it? A time dilation. So we had more time. Ceres had like a 20-hour day or something, and 20-hour day on the clock.
Yeah.
But we got 2 8 hours of work time. So we worked 16 and got 8 hours of sleep because, or we got plenty of time off because the ship would leave at 7 o'clock and get back at 6:55 in the morning, 5 minutes before. So because of that, those days added up over 8 years to 2 years off. So in Earth time, it was 18 years. But in my time up there, it was 20 years. They cap it at 20. So it's whatever, complicated. And I hate losing people, but I'm being truthful when I talk about it. That's why I'm saying I'm just trying to be truthful.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
And explain why does it have to be 20 too? Because 20. Like what? Explain that.
Couple things. So again, when I'm saying that, how my time added up, there are other people that are coming forward with testimonies today that have completely different things. There are people that say that they've been gone 60 years and they come back and they do it hundreds of times. And I'm not saying that that's not possible because I really don't know. Truth is, I just don't know. I don't have a yes or no on that. So other people are coming forward. I got to take it. I kind of take all the information as what it is, and we'll wait and see. You know what I mean? The time will tell. That's what I mean. Time is the best lie detector there is. So far, it hasn't. It's proven me right. I was told when I asked, because I asked that on day one, when I'm sitting there in a laboratory with a reptilian and a couple grays, and he said, "We're going to take you for 20 years," and he explained the process. And I said, "Why not 50? Why not 40 years? Why not 30 years? Why just 20?" And he said, "All species, with what we're doing with you, after 20 years, the likelihood of us putting you back and you having insanity is very great. So we cap it at 20 years. You could go 25 years, you could go 30, or you could go 21 years and come back and we will put you back and you'll go insane." And so because of that, there's a safety net. And he said all species, not just humans. And so maybe it was that, and I'm speculating, maybe it was just that tech. And maybe I think there's more than one way to do it. Once you get into that, you know what I mean? Like what they're doing, that life extension tech, time dilation. I think there's more than one way to do it. So there's definitely possibilities of people going longer or shorter. We definitely know that the young kids go for weeks. So they take kids that are under 4 or 5 years old, and they take them out of their house at night, and they take them for a week, and they put them back the same night. So they're getting time dilation on Earth in military programs, and they're being taken for 2-3 days. Groomed, put back, and then they come back 6 months later, take them for a week or two. So we know that that's happening. That's very actually widespread with the MyLab people. A lot of people are saying that. So we know that that's something that they do. And then at a certain age, 12 for the girls, 11, 12 for the psychic boys, 17 for the soldier boys that they're taking, and then they do the 20 years. And then people that have more of the, not limited to, but more often the Caucasian genetics, the European, Scandinavian genetics, those people are going and they go 20 years and then they live their 20 years on Earth and then they take them and do it again. They do 40 years. And so I'm seeing a lot of that pop up. And those are hard to unwind because one bleeds into another. The memories when you work with somebody like that, it's really hard to unwind it. They tend to do their first 20 years in a traumatic sense and their second 20 years in a professional sense. So,
okay. Do you find that the professional sense bleeds over into the real life when they, have you ever heard about people who may have a job up there and then they come back and they end up going into the kind of same job?
Not the same job, but the same talent. People that are very talented in these programs tend to come back here and be just as skillful at different stuff.
Which is probably why they take people in the first place, is because they kind of see that they have a certain tool set.
we're way down the road at this. So this is a mature technology, and these are mature systems that are in place. So they're not taking people that they don't know anything about. They're taking the kids of kids that they took back in the 50s and 60s. So,
my heart is racing.
so this is a genetic thing. Like that's what the whole monarch thing is that, you know, like the nut doesn't fall too far from the tree. So we see it all the time in professional sport. You look at professional sports and you go, if only there was a benchmark for people that had outstanding physical ability. There is. They're called professional sports. So all those people are on their radar, and their kids tend to be great, awesome at sports too. So we see the genetics play out. We take people that are very smart and college students, their parents are on the board or alumni, and those kids are breezing through college because the aptitude and the genetic memory. The Monarch program proved genetic memory through the butterflies navigating. So that's what these programs are after. They're not just willy-nilly. They took me run of the mill because of what I was, but that's where they put me, was in a laborious thing. So
wow.
I'll just okay, Sharnael.
Yeah.
I guess one major question before we finish for me is, do you think that what you experienced and what you're now doing was some kind of higher pre-agreed soul mission for you to help people at this time and what we're going through?
That's a pretty awesome question. That's a good question. And, you know, I don't think I have a definite answer for it. I believe that I had, so if I would, I believe, and I think about this because it's amazing to me what I'm doing. That the people that reach out to me, and when I do consults, and like, it's weird. It's like having the answer to things without knowing how I got the answer to things, you know, because of that life, because all those memories are there. I just don't use them until somebody asks me about them. I think that I would have had potential. So I think that where I'm at in my life right now, if I would have never gone into the program, that I would have been something equally doing what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like, I think I would have had the same impact on the world in my life because of my potential, because everybody has a certain shines with a certain brightness. And they took me, and I don't think that I was the typical guy. I think for the program that I went through, they were taking people, like I said, that were criminals and people that were a different brightness, if you will. And I was somebody that didn't belong there. And so here we are, you know, down the road, that I kind of got revenge by remembering it. That's the deal. Is I think I was just somebody that had that amount of brightness. And if I wouldn't have gone in these programs, I would have done something different. Like, it did stump my growth. When I got back, I was a straight A student. I was an outstanding student, and I went to D's and E's immediately. I totally withdrew from everything, and it did stump my life. And I have emotional problems. Like, all through my 20s, I was just a basket. I was a weird guy. Girls would go on one date with me, not two, because I was weird. You know, I didn't know why. I had
Normal
all this
people are boring.
Well, I was weird, and I still, you know, I mean, I still kind of am, but I sorted out a lot of it now that I know why. You know, at least I can make sense of it all. But, you know, what I'm saying is, those years that I was taken during that in my real life, I was not what I should have been, what I would have been if they would have left me alone. So my higher self, or whatever my destiny was, you know, I think fills in. I think life fills in where it can and is the most efficient, and that's what happened to me. So I don't know if I pre-chose it, or whatever. I mean, I won't know till I'm dead, I guess.
Nonetheless.
Well,
good question.
I know that we are glad, and so many people out there are glad. I work with a lot of the women involved and stuff. I try to keep it on the women sort, but when I do get guys who come to me for help in sorting things out, I send them to you. So I had two this week that I sent to you, because I just, for, you know, just because of some of the stuff that people talk about, may not want to talk about some of the sexual stuff with, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I try to just keep it boys with the boys and the girls with the girls. Maybe I'm old school, but just thinking that people might be a little more comfortable talking to a guy about that. So, but I mean, just, you've helped me and so many people, whether it's a calling or a thing you would have done anyway, or whatever. The fact that you're choosing and making the free will choice to be who you are and do what you do and be authentic in what you're doing it, and using what may have been against you, you know, for a higher purpose. I'm just incredibly appreciative and have so much gratitude. And I know hundreds and thousands of, you know, tons of people, I want to say hundreds of thousands, but thousands of people that we've done shows with and people have got on, your name comes up and people have said, oh yeah, he's helped me, or this has helped me. So where can people go? Yeah. I mean, you're one of the credible interest, you know, people,
the most credible, yeah, in my opinion,
are truly like not cuckoo, you know, doing all the drugs and can't really talk to them or put sentences together. You know, the fact that you can remember, you're down to earth, you're authentic, you're honest, and just easy to talk to, you know, able to communicate, able to help so many people. That has been one of the real driving forces of why I refer people to you. And speaking of, go ahead and tell everyone where they can contact you if they're having these kind of things. Like, go ahead and put it out there. And then, of course, where can people get your book? Because this is absolutely important for anyone.
It's a really good read. Really
so
good.
the book is in Kindle and paperback. It's on Amazon, but there's a link to it on my website. There's you can contact me. You can email me through my website and book time, or look at directly. There's a memory course to help people like with exercise. It's not hypnotic regression. It's like prior to that. Like these are exercises that'll help. There's a course, and there's things that I just had to monetize, you know. But it's TonyRodrigues.com. Just like if you can see my name down here, it's the same as that, but .com. And it's got the links to the book. It's got links to interviews. I have a show on Patreon that I do. And because I am a little shadow banned. I used to be the first 3 pages of Tony Rodrigues on Google, and now I'm not. And now I'm barely on there. There's a bunch of other guys that are way ahead of me that don't do shows in front of hundreds of thousands of people. Well, and it's odd that they're like pages ahead. So I've been shadow banned on Google. When you go to I think it's Bing that you go Tony Rodrigues and I'll come up more often. All my stuff comes up, but I have been shadow banned. This subject matter is being slowly swept aside. Yeah. And so it's important to know. So that's why I'm so happy that the book is out. Like they can't undo the hardcover book that's physically in your hand. Yeah, exactly. And so because I've had, you know, I've done hundreds of interviews, and I know that like more than half of them are gone that are not there anymore. So, but TonyRodrigues.com. Yeah.
Yes, and for those of you guys watching, he's bringing up a really good point. I hope that you will share this with other people and get it out there and share it in groups, you know, send it to your friends, whatever, because you never know who's maybe going through something and just not really wanting to talk to anyone about, or not knowing who to talk to. Because I know when I was going through my stuff, I was actually going through a thing with my child who was seeing a counselor, and you know, I would mentally think to myself, well, what if I just went and made this counseling appointment with this lady and just started telling her? I would sit there and like imagine telling her what kind of stuff that I got to tell Tony, and they would have locked me up. You know, it'd have been like, see ya. But yeah, so this is a safe, secure place when you're working with him. And you know, he's heard all kinds of things, and maybe you'll have new things, but he also sees patterns. And he's able, because he's heard so many testimonies now, you know, he can, you know, definitely help you in making yourself feel like a little less crazy and putting some things together, because he'll, you know, like my pattern with the chair. I went to the dentist just in the last couple year. Was it last year, Craig? I don't know.
Yeah, it's about a year or two ago. Yeah, maybe 18 months. Yeah.
I don't know why. I'd been to the dentist as a kid and it didn't bother me. And then when the stuff bled through, I go to the dentist. I sat there. I had to go in the bathroom and sit down and hold my hands because I was shaking so hard. I had it on video of just not being able to get myself together to go back into the chair. And so, and then I talked to Tony about it, and he's like, oh yeah, that was you know, or actually you were on a show with me and you brought it up, and I was like, oh my God, I just talked to my husband and Craig and some others about this, and have a video of my hands shaking so almost violently, my whole body you know, so he has those things where he can go, yep, you know, and you'll definitely feel, I don't want to say, I mean, there's a part of me when I remembered and had some things validated that are like, whew, like, thank God in a weird way, but it's also like, oh my God, that happened. And so there's this mix, but also, you know, coming on the end of it, it's there, it's like a healing. It's to be validated and to know that you're not insane. And it does bring relief a bit to go, that's why, you know. So I really do encourage you guys, if you're feeling that, to reach out to them, and to get on his Patreon and to take the courses and definitely get the book, because it's been a real key for me, and just being able to get back to some kind of a normal situation. But yeah, so thank you personally. And Craig, do you have any final words before we pop off too? And then I'll give Tony the last word.
Yeah, no, I'm just super grateful, Tony, to be able to talk to you. Like I say, I was just thinking then when Sharnael was talking that, like, in a weird way, it's probably because I've read your book, I feel like I know you. And it's just thank you for being vulnerable and open and honest about your experiences. I mean, you really are one of the pioneering voices talking about this stuff publicly. And obviously, you know, I know you're getting flack, but you know, we just want to be a safe community for people to be able to talk about memories, experiences without judgment or you know, like ridicule. And you're doing an amazing job, and I can't thank you enough. So thank you, Tony.
Thank you. You guys are being really good to me today. So I'll take it. I won't let it go to my head. But thank you so much. I would touch on that, and I would say that, you know, right now, I mean, there's a lot of people that are coming forward saying that they've participated in these, and there are a few people that I feel that are very disingenuous. To be honest with you, I think that there are people from letter agencies that are sent to dissipate. They don't misinform, but they dissipate the information. And so I think they've really ramped up. They kind of got on the same page. But that doesn't matter, because there's no choice of in the future. It's not if, it's when, of a disclosure where we're going to learn about other societies, in not only on other planets and other star systems interacting with us and others, but within our own solar system. We're going to learn about this. It's, you know, if it's 1,000 years from now, it's going to happen. And so when that happens, everybody, so right now, like, people see it's a small audience, and let's say a 1/100th of 1% of the audience looks at my testimony and goes, oh my God, I remember doing that too. Right. So what happens when it's 7 million people? And you get what I mean? Like, it's gonna sooner or later, we're gonna have to really normalize this information. It's gonna have to be normal, and people are gonna have to be able to talk about it, like you said, Sharnael, because we're just gonna have to grow up as a society. They want to keep us dumb. They want to keep us where you laugh at people. They want, you know, something bad happens to a guy, you want to laugh at them. That's what they want us to do. They want us to be petty, and they want us to act like a child race. And at some point, we're going to have to grow up, and we're going to have to really all take, you know, everybody get honest with ourselves, and B, everybody let everybody get honest. People tell lies because they're afraid of what the other person's going to not accept. Right. So you have to, if you don't accept what you really are, because all society is accepting something else, you have to lie. You're not, you know, so we have to enter into that, because that's the next step after that, is once we get into space, we're going to come in contact with races that are telepathic. Yes. And there's no lying. Yeah. That's why they're not emotional. That's why the human race is so emotional, because we have secrets. And so these other races that communicate, they can see everything. There's no lies. They don't get emotional when they find out the stupid move you did last week, the stupid thing you did last weekend. They're not going to get mad at you about it, because they don't have, because I did it too, man. But, you know, look, that's where we got to go. That's what the society is going in, that direction. And we're going to have to be brutally honest with ourselves first. And we're going to have to accept brutal honesty without an emotional reaction, because there's a lot of things that happen every day that we don't want to know. And so that's where we're at. That's the beginning of disclosure. Disclosure is going to lead to that change, that magnitude of society. We're just all going to have to grow up, man.
And it's grassroots as well. We talked about that with Dan Willis, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's grassroots.
Yeah, and I mean, with the disclosure situation, I mean, even when Trump came out with the Space Force, within like I think a day, Netflix had this thing to mock it. You know, just sure no one
silly.
serious. You know, so they use entertainment and that just goes back to keeping everyone afraid, keeping everyone in prison. You know, whether it's trails, the food, you know, the thing in the arm, all the stuff that to keep everybody dumb and in fear, and the media, you know, just so nobody would actually remember their either their past or their purpose here now,
or not want to talk about it.
Yes, yeah, because that makes everyone look weird and like, oh, that can't be real. So, so yeah, you've brought so many amazing things to the surface here today. And again, I just tell everybody, you know, check this out, grab this book. It's definitely worth every single page. And go to his website. And I'm just forever thankful for your service to everyone, and everyone else too. Also go to swiftfire.org and get on the newsletter. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, hit the subscribe button. We have a few other cool interviews coming up. We stay pretty booked, and I would love for you to join us. Please do make sure and share this video. I mentioned before, with being shadow banned, the only way is to really have you guys help us grassroots to get the word out. So thank you guys for your time. And thanks for all your education and just for your love. And we'll see each other again soon, I guess.
Speak soon.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.